I'm going to go over what the differences are between being an abductee and being a volunteer. And I'm really happy to be able to use the phrase that Dolores Cannon coined of volunteer. I was calling myself a participant in a program before somebody sent me the video that she gave on explaining what a volunteer is. And I like that term because to refer to myself as an abductee never felt right at all. Even back in the 80s, 90s, when I was first coming to terms with what was happening in my life, there was a part of me that never accepted that I was a victim. That's what I was being told by all the investigators. And it certainly felt that way, seemed that way. I was being taken, and things were being done to me that seemed clearly to be against my will. But there was still a part of me that kept thinking that it just didn't resonate with me on a deep level. It took a long time, a long time, a lot of searching and a lot of digging into spiritual studies and just my guides, actually, the guys who I was having these encounters with, they also, through their teachings. So to come to finally get to where you accept that you're a volunteer, it wasn't easy. It seems like you do that because it's a cop-out, because you want to believe it. But I'm not wired that way. It took a lot for me to accept that I was even having these abduction experiences, that they were even real. If you read my book, you know that how badly I wanted to be diagnosed with a mental illness rather than accept that I'm being abducted by aliens. It was just bizarre. Now that I've had all these decades to get used to it, I can still understand why people think it's bizarre, definitely. But it was when I was walking in the desert and asking my guys, kind of having a conversation with them and saying, why have I had to have so much contact? Why have I had to have you in my life so much? Because I knew that many abductees, they had one encounter and that was it. And I was having them several times a week in these what I call high levels of activity, these periods of time in my life that sometimes go on for 2 or 3 year stretches where 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week I'm being taken by them. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how that could happen. I didn't understand. I now get time is a 3 and 4th dimensional illusion. So I understand now why I can be on the ship with them. I can be with them for what seems like such long periods of time and then come back to my life and not have it be that disrupted. It's because time doesn't really exist. They're taking me to a dimension that is timeless. So that I finally understood, but I still wanted to know why. Why was this such a big part of my life? And he pulled back the curtain, is what he did. Basically, it felt just like that when I never will forget it. Where I was walking in the desert, and he pulled back this curtain and showed me. And I saw myself volunteer to come to planet Earth. And there were millions of us that did that. And so everything was agreed to before I came here. I agreed to be a participant in the hybrid program. And that explained why the physical, what seemed to be the violation of me, and to take my eggs. But it was something that I had allowed and agreed to before I even was born onto this planet. The second phase of my mission to be here was to become a spokesperson, which is what I'm doing now. Writing the book and trying to bridge the gap and get people to understand that there's people out there who still believe we're alone in the multiverse. And it's because of fear, I think. And those that do believe that we are not alone, they still have trouble understanding and accepting that you can have contact on a regular basis. And I have ongoing contact with my guides. And it's really, once you get past the fear, I think it's something that everyone can do. Getting past the fear is not easy. But once you understand you're not a victim, it changes everything. To understand you're a participant, that you are agreeing to this on some level, and that you're not having things done to you. And it came to my awareness, what I talk about in my lecture, what I'm going to talk about, this phrase that I like to say that just came out of me once when I was up on stage speaking, and people afterwards came out and talked to me, and the point that I made was that there cannot be a perpetrator if there is not a victim. It's the same energy, it's just different sides of the same coin. And I'm sure there's other spiritual teachers who have said that, but I think I like to put the emphasis on it because I'm talking to a lot of people who are looking for answers themselves to the abduction experience. They're still having fear. There's a lot of people who are having ongoing contact or have had even just one so-called abduction in their life, and they're living still with that fear. It isn't always happily accepted when you tell somebody that this has happened to them because they are allowing it. They agreed to it because they don't remember that agreement, maybe. They will if they allow themselves to relax into it and to open up to it. Like myself, I certainly didn't remember. It took a lot of work on my part to get to that point. I had to work through the fear, and it was through having that contact with my guides that I was able and allowed to see the truth of it, my actual volunteering to come here, who I was before I came here, and understand that planet Earth is a planet that is based in fear. It was originally created in love, but it eventually fell into such a low frequency. The fear is prevalent and has taken over the planet. So having to move beyond fear is the greatest challenge for the inhabitants of planet Earth, and along with that is the idea of giving up the idea that we're victims. Because so long as we agree to be victims, nothing's going to change. But we have this great opportunity now as the planet moves through this, onto this new timeline, which is a game changer. And all this high vibrational light is coming onto the planet to lift us up, plus all the volunteers, all the star seed children that are coming on. I mean, there's just been a lot of effort put into getting humanity to awaken. Because back when I volunteered to come onto the planet, it wasn't going to happen. The souls on planet Earth were probably going to be lost. And so there's been all this great effort put forth by all these loving beings and all these people, all these souls who have come from the higher realms, the higher dimensions, to come on and to lift up the frequency, because the planet has been in such a spiral, downward spiral, and been trapped by those that have an agenda to keep the planet an imprisoned planet. But that game is coming to an end. But it's still an individual's decision whether they want to awaken now or want to wait to awaken. And when I say that, people always say, well, I want to awaken. I want to go. And I say, that's good. You know, your soul has to make that decision, and you need to be on board with it. And then they want to know, well, what do I do? And there's many facets to it, but there's spiritual paths that you can choose, such as studying like the Course in Miracles, which was mine. But it all involves the same thing, which is to become heart-centered, release fear. Amelia Benz, on her Ascension 101, her exercise for releasing fear is the same, practically exactly the same as what my guides gave me. So you can do that, exercise for releasing fear, meditating, being in silence every day, and just remembering the truth of who you are as you walk through your day. Remember with each breath that you're not a body, you're not separate, you are part of oneness, and feel that connection to all life. And I think that's the ticket right there. My theory is that everybody has had contact at least one time. And the reason I believe that is that we all have family out there. And I think that they just like to check in on us at least one time, at least once. Now there's a difference between angels, I know, and our guides, and then our galactic family. But it's kind of, it almost doesn't matter. We have these beings of these different realms who are checking in on us. But the ETs, our cosmic family, I think that they like to just come in and just to see how you're doing, because they can. They're coming in from a higher frequency, and it's easy for them to do that. But as far as contact, ongoing, the kind of contact like that I'm having, where it's been lifelong and ongoing, I don't think that's as common. There are those who agreed to participate in the hybrid program. There are those who agreed to be victims of another type of hybrid program. The hybrid program that I'm participating in, or I did participate in, was one to make sure that the human biological entity known as the Earth human didn't perish, because it certainly appeared that that's what was going to happen. And also because that's just what this race does. But there are other races that are, I guess, coming in and abducting people seemingly against their will also, but that agreement is on a different level. Those people have agreed on some level to participate in that type of experience for whatever reason. But to answer your question, I don't know that I'm hearing from several people around the world. So I have a huge base of people who do have contact like I do. So I'm certainly, it's not rare, but it's not as much as having had at least one encounter in your life. A lot of people have just one encounter and no more. So for whatever reason. So where are we at and where are we headed as far as our contact with the galactic family and the whole ascension thing, really the whole awakening on the planet? The first thing I would address is the disclosure thing. That because we're at a UFO conference and there's talk of the disclosure, everybody wants disclosure. I think that the disclosure is going to come from people like myself and others who are getting, hopefully, my agenda is to get people talking about this and make it normal. You know, part of my speaking out is to try to encourage others, give others the courage to do the same thing. And the more of us that talk about it, because I have a lot of people who write to me and say, I've been having these things happening my entire life too, or I've had this happen or that happen, but I don't talk about it. I don't want to be laughed at, or my family won't accept it, or whatever the case may be. And I don't try to push them, but I just say, well, I hope you find your voice at some point, because the more of us that speak, the more common it will be and more acceptable. But disclosure isn't going to probably come from our government. I mean, obviously, they have an agenda. And so disclosure and the making this phenomenon acceptable is just going to come from, over time, enough people saying, of course it's real. And what's there to be afraid of? To me, it's a lot like being afraid of citizens who live on a different continent. Just because you've never been to that continent and all of a sudden you go there or they show up in front of you, does that mean that you have to be afraid of them? I mean, what is the difference? They're beings from another planet or another dimension. They're still beings created by the same creator. And we all have DNA from us. We came from the stars, all of us. So those of us who came in as volunteers, like myself, coming from a sixth dimension, and some of the starseed children who are coming in from those higher frequencies, so what? we're all part of oneness, and that's the bottom line. So where we are on that, I think that probably 3 to 5 years from now, I think people will be talking way more openly. I'm expecting that the frequencies that are coming onto the planet and the awakening that's happening now is going to have a huge bearing on the UFO subject and the way that people respond to it and our acceptance of it. I mean, some of the things, one of the speakers yesterday, Peter Davenport, I think was his name, really intelligent, well-informed guy. He has the UFO hotline, and he was saying how, and I know I've read about this before, the sightings over San Francisco or wherever they were, and I don't even know the year, maybe it was the 70s, but, we sent out the military to shoot them down. And so our Galactic family isn't going to come and land on the White House lawn. They would never make it. They would get shot down, or they can avoid that sort of thing because of their technology. But they'll show themselves when we're mature enough to handle it. And that when our reaction to them is not one of fear and wanting to kill them, for crying out loud. It's just bizarre, but that's where the humans have been on planet Earth, in that base of fear. But I think that the planet is going to make it. I think that it's going to take some time, but definitely the ascension is going to go the way the human collective decides it's going to go. I think that it could happen that certain races contact their family. I know that actually does seem like that might be the way that it's going. I know that there are, and just in my circle of friends, there are some Arcturians who are reaching out to some people who are open to messages from them and to receiving messages from them, and they are little by little showing themselves to them. The Dracos are showing up at my house, and there's we have an agreement with them to allow that. And different groups, I think the Pleiadians are certainly contacting many different. It's like we're foot soldiers. We have our feet on the ground. We're in human bodies, and so we're acceptable. So they connect with us, and then from there we talk about it, hopefully a little bit, just to make it seem normal. And so we're kind of like ambassadors, and kind of paving the way to make it okay for people to accept these beings. We get so afraid because they look different. They manifest themselves differently. And I know I've had people ask me, well, if there's such a high vibrational being, why can't they come in a human body? But they project themselves the way that they decide to, or the way that they think is going to be most acceptable to us, or the way that their energy allows them to. There could be any number of reasons why they show up the way they do. But I think for myself, I know that I don't have any fear of certain. I've had a lot of different, I don't know how many different races show up to me consciously in my conscious awareness, but I know that the Dracos are the ones that I'm the least afraid of. And I think somebody told me, Mary Rodwell or somebody said, well, that's because we have this shared DNA, a close shared DNA with them. But I do not find them fearful at all when I see them. And of course the Pleiadians, and some of them are quite beautiful people, what we consider to be beautiful. We just have to get around the idea of what's acceptable and what's not, So, that could be very well. My guys told me that they probably were not going to be physically coming onto the planet. They told me that quite a while ago, and it's true, I haven't seen them. I've had the Dracos and others, but I haven't had my guys. And I don't know if they're busy or what. I have a friend who channels the Arcturians, and he's telling me that there's literally this war going on out there. And I don't know what to make of that. I know that certainly everything that's happening for me is on an energy level. And that's how I see people, is on an energy. But it manifests in physicality. So if there is a battle going on, literally a battle for planet Earth, it's possible that it's manifesting in physicality and that it is happening out there. I kind of think that, I trust him, and I think I trust that information. It resonates as possibly being true. So to think that there might be a place, what I know is that my guys like to come in through these portals. There's certain vortex portals that they come in through, and I know where they are in my area. My house, I had a house that I built. I was directed, and I built it on this specific site so that they could come in and out easily to visit me. And so whether there'll be down the road a place, I know New Mexico is a hotbed of area, easy places. They're all over the place. Arizona, yeah. But and where I come from in Wisconsin, we have lots of portals. They're able to come in and out. I think that the reason they said that they wouldn't be doing it now, they told me it was very unstable, because as we're moving from the third to the fourth and through on up to the fifth dimension, for them to come in, my guys are from like high sixth and seventh dimension, for them to come in and step down their frequency into physicality, I don't think it's that easy and even all that pleasant maybe for them to do it. And I think that if we're shifting and bouncing around a lot here, as we are all doing, that maybe it makes it harder for them to make it happen. But I don't know that for sure.